जन्म दुःख विनाशकलिङ्गम् बोलो देव मुनि प्रवरार्चितलिङ्गम् रावण दर्प सर्वसुगन्धितुलेपितलिङ्गम् ब्रह्ममुरारी कनकमहामणिभूषितलिङ्गम् दक्षसूर्यज्ञविनाशनलिङ्गम् ब्रह्ममुरारी चन्दनलेपितलिङ्गम् सञ्चित पाप ब्रह्ममुरारी देवजनार्चित सेवितलिङ्गम् दिनकर कोटि प्रभाकरलिङ्गम् ब्रह्ममुरारी अष्टदलो परिवेशितलिङ्गम् अष्टदरिद्रविनाशकलिङ्गम् ब्रह्ममुरारी पूजितलिङ्गम् परात्परम् ब्रह्ममुरारी निर्मल वाञ्छित शोभितलिङ्गम् निर्मल भाषित शोभितलिङ्गम् उमापति महादेव की जय. We continue to focus our minds upon the divine in the form of Bhagavan Krishna. Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanda
Namostute
Harir Nama Harir Nama Harir Namaiva Kevalam Kalona Naseva Gatiranyata Sri Krishnaya
Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah
प्रेम से बोलो श्री कृष्ण चंद्र भगवान की जय. During these last days, Hindus all over the world have gathered at their place of worship, in their homes, in every geographical reference in the world where Hindus now reside, to participate in austerities dedicated to the Divine Mother. And it is believed that after participating in these austerities for the 8 or 9 days, that the devotee celebrates a victory, and it's called Vijay Dashmi, that is today, or Dashera. It is important that we understand the significance of this period of worship and this celebration. This period of worship is intended to be a time to bring things together, to identify what we want and what we don't want. It's kind of a spring cleaning or a winter cleaning, or preparing for winter. You know, if you have your own home, as the winter is approaching, you would have to make sure the grass is well cut and all the leaves are removed, and that the lawn is left in such a way that during the winter, when the snow comes, that if you have certain shrubs or certain plants that they are well protected, that the winter and its harshness will not damage them, so that when the spring comes, they will rise again. And you have to make sure that the house is well sealed in Canada, so that the heat, there will be no heat loss. And you have to make sure that all the vents and systems are clean, that there will be no contamination of air. In essence, you are getting rid of what you don't want, you're cleaning things up, and you are preparing for a healthy status of existence during these cold months. Navaratri and the austerities of Navaratri are similar. We should look at our lives and we should say, I want to get rid of these things. And it should not be that we're getting rid of our spouse, or getting rid of our children, or children getting rid of our parents. No. It must be, we must look at getting rid of some of our attitudes and tendencies, and developing some of our good qualities. You know, on a job interview, if anyone is going for a job interview, or if you've been recently, one of the questions that is usually asked somewhere in an interview, and for me when I used to interview, I used to save it for the last. Okay, so I've heard all of the good things about you. Your resume is just outstanding and you deliver very well. But I have 2 questions for you. What do you think are your greatest strengths? And of course, they will tell me, you know, da 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 da. And then here comes the big $1 million question. So what do you think are your weaknesses? And then there's a moment of silence. You know why there's a moment of silence? Because we don't have weaknesses, right? When was the last time we stopped to look at our weaknesses and said, you know, I'm weak here, I should work on this? And you know, I'll tell you the truth, that no one ever got a job by me if they didn't have any weakness. Because we all have weaknesses. And maybe I'm being very biased. But the reality is, if someone can identify where they need to improve, then they must be perfect. And there's no such person in the world. So, as we go through this period of preparing ourselves, we must realize we are not perfect. And we must decide what attitudes we have that we need to either detach ourselves or to reformat them or reshape them. We need to think of how we meet and greet and interact with people in the world and ask ourselves, how can I refine my presentation skills as a human being? For I'm constantly presenting to the world. Every mother and father must know that they're always on stage and they're going through the actions of life. And who's the audience? The children. And every child must know that they're on stage also, and their parents are the most enraptured audience they can have. They are seeing them even when they think they don't see them. As such, since we're all on stage and we're all acting the process of life, then we want to refine our skills that in our speech. In the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked the Divine Lord Krishna, Sthit pragyasya ka bhasha samadhi satasya keshava siddhati kim pravesh kim asit brajeta kim Sthit pragyasya ka bhasha samadhi satasya keshava. Tell me, O Lord, how does a person who is truly wise, a man of wisdom, or a person of wisdom, how do they walk, how do they sit, and how do they talk? How do we walk and sit and talk is relevant to the way we present ourselves. You know, it said action speaks louder than. So, our sitting and walking are representations of the action. And of course, when we speak, therein lies our true personality. From speech, you know, have you ever spoken to someone and you've never seen them? Like you talk to them on the phone, and you're talking to them for years, and you in business, you know, every morning you have to call this company and you have to speak to someone to give an order, to take an order. You get to know each other by first name. Now you're discussing the weather, you're talking about, but you don't have the faintest idea what they look like. But you have this caricature in your mind that they must be, you know, whatever. And then one day you do meet them. And they introduce themselves to you and you said, At that time, revelation, oh my God, don't they look totally different from what I thought they looked like. Well, I must tell you, once I was invited to one of the schools here to do a talk on Hinduism. And it was a day I was on the job consulting, and I promised that I would go to the school, so I kind of snuck out at lunchtime from the job and went to the school, so I couldn't change into my priestly garb. I went with my suit and tie, and I arrived in time. But I arrived about 5 minutes before the class would start, and I was directed to the classroom. So I went to the classroom, and there was a few students in the classroom. I went in, I parked myself on a chair, and I sat there, and I'm waiting for the class to start. Well, the children all came in, the students came in, and there was high school students. They were rowdy, and they were oblivious of me. I did not exist. And they talked, and then the classroom filled, and then the teacher came in and says, "Hey guys, today we're expecting this Hindu priest. Did anybody see him?" And I said, "Here I am." Oh, sorry. So then I said, wow, I wonder what they expected. So when I got up, I did my opening spiel. I said, "Tell me, what was your thought in your mind of how this person should look who was coming to talk to you today?" Well, he has a thing wrapped around his head, you know, old fellow with a little beard and a fat belly. I said, I don't fit the description at all, do I? Perception develops attitudes. Perception creates attitudes. So you talk to a person on the phone and you have the perception that, you know, that they are good looking and they must be suave and sophisticated, and then you see them and they're sloppy looking, they're overweight, and you say, ugh. Right? But you don't do that, of course, right? But your perception creates an attitude that, oh, I'm going to be nice to them. When they come, you don't even want to shake their hands. Or it could be the reverse. Your perception is, I don't want to see this person. I mean, you see them, oh my God, let me hug you. Wow, you're such a wonderful human being. So, perception is judgment. Perception is creating your own evidence and passing judgment. Don't when it comes to dealing with human beings. Perception of an idea, conception of an idea, but when you're talking about the human being, let it be what you see. Let it be what you hear. Do not judge. So in this period of Navratri, the quality that we want to get rid of is judgment. What did Christ say? Anybody remember that? Judge not, lest ye be judged. And you know, there's a story in the Bible, by the way, this is a Hindu mandir. Okay? But all good books are good. And there are many stories like this in the Hindu scriptures. In the Shiv Puran and the Bhagavad Devi Puran, there are stories about someone who has lived an unsavory life. And this similar story is in the Christian Bible, it's in the Bhagavad Puran, whereby a Brahmin lady lived an unsavory life. And then she was accused by all the people of the village of being an impious person, and they wanted to torture and torment her. Like in the Bible, there was a woman who everyone was about to stone her. And then Christ says, he who has no sin, let him cast the first stone. Nobody threw any bricks. Similarly, in the Devi Puran and the Shiv Puran, that is, there is the Brahmin lady who came to the realization that she is living an impious life and sought the guidance of her teachers and gurus. When the world will ostracize her, she was looked upon as someone who was seeking to become better. Seeking to become better. Again, judgment is a factor. There is this beautiful story that is told about this prostitute who lived in a neighborhood in India. And there she was observed once by a reverend individual. That the number of clientele that she had, and he decided one day, look, I might as well talk to this lady, let her know that she's living an impious life. So this pious man, this Swami, went to the house of the prostitute. And while he was going there, the next door neighbor noticed the Swamiji is going to the house of the prostitute. And we all can imagine what she started thinking, right? We all can imagine that. And of course, Swamiji went and he talked to her and explained to her, you know, this lifestyle you're living. And she said, I understand, but it's been in the world that we live in my world, this is the living I've had, but I know it is wrong and I am changing it. I want to change it and I'm making every effort to change it. And thank you for giving me this guidance. While this discussion was happening, the lady next door was on the phone talking to a few other neighbors, explaining what she had observed about what the Swami's visit was. And then, so the Swami came back and with the thought in his mind that she will change. And then after a couple of weeks he observed and he saw the traffic didn't really, in his mind, reduce. So, he went back and visited again. And she explained, no, what you've noticed is actually things have really dropped off. I am really changing. And of course, the next door neighbor noticed he was going again and she called her friends and told them again. That evening, the next door neighbor, the Swami and the prostitute died. They're all at this place of reception that we call the gate towards Nirvana. The gatekeeper came and said, Swami, you stay outside. You're not welcome. Next door neighbor, you have a long, long time before you can enter here. And you, lady prostitute, please come in. Now, the Swami was very upset. The next door neighbor had nothing to say. I'm a man of God, what are you telling me? And then the gatekeeper explained. He says, you know, you were quite right when you observed that this woman was living an impious life. And you did the right thing by going and advising her. But you judged her afterwards and thinking she was not changing when truly in her mind she wanted to change. And you, next door neighbor, all you were doing was judging and judging wrongfully without any evidence at all. And as such, the question is, who is going to heaven? Only you and I know the answer to that question. So we must discard the attitudes that we have in our minds. That if we live this pristine, so it appears life, but yet our thought processes are demeaning and derogatory and abusive or egotistical. He said, yes, during Navrat, this is the time to clean the shelf, wash things out, get rid of those qualities, and says, I'm going to start developing some better qualities. And if we do, then we have a lot to celebrate. Then Vijay Dashmi means something. For then we are celebrating, look what I have accomplished. My whole life is changed. And I want to make this very clear, that there's no greater change, an instant change, when we make a mental change. Nothing more instant like that. If you turn on the heat on a stove, it's hot, but it's not instantly hot. But when we make a change in our mind, instantly that change has effect. The minute we decided that someone who we liked and we hate, that is instant. And the same thing happens when we hate and we decide to love. It's instant. The human mind is such a powerful entity that it has the ability to transcend and to transform itself so quickly without anyone's external help. It has to be totally up to the individual. Totally up to the individual. So today, briefly, I want to read from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3. Because it's important for us to understand what causes us not to change these attitudes. Now, there are three qualities that we all possess. And in modern psychology, they might be related to our persona. They're called the id, ego, superego. Now, we all hear this word ego, you're egotistical. But when someone is lazy, when someone has no responsibilities, but they're good and kind and sweet, what do you call that person? They're not arrogant, they're very humble, they're very gentle, but they do not take responsibility for anything. They cannot fulfill a commitment, and they're lazy. How do you describe them? Oh, by the way, I don't mean anybody here. I'm talking about somebody else outside. How would you describe that person? What would you call them? Lazy, irresponsible, and right? Well, I want you to know, the state of mind they're in? They're not egotistical. They're in the id state, or the tamasic state, the state of total darkness. Laziness, irresponsible, non-committed. That is the lowest state of human existence. Laziness is one of the greatest ills of the world. And there's laziness of the body that comes from laziness of the mind. And boredom is a form of laziness too, by the way. It is the highest form of laziness. So children, whenever you tell your mom you're bored, watch it. The response will be, you're just being lazy. Go find something to do. So this attitude that we have is another one we have to get rid of. We must rise to whereby we are in the septic state where we are self-motivated. In chapter 3, Bhagavan Krishna is telling Arjuna that we must learn how to get involved in activities because the Lord declares himself. Join with me in brief Dhyanam to Bhagavan Krishna. Om Parthaya Pratibhojitam Bhagavata
Narayanasayam Vyasena Gratitam Puranamunina Madhye Mahabharatam
Advaitamitvarshini Bhagavatim
अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अहं मत्वा मनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भावद्वेषिणीम्
Namastute Vyas
विशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णा प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमया
Deepa Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya Govindaya Namo Namah. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Yadi Hayam Navarteyam Jatu Karmanya Tad Dida Mama Vartamu Tanteya Manushya Pata Sarvasha Sri Krishnaya Vasudevaya
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
Bhagavan Krishna is telling Arjuna, Tadu Arjuna, if I, the Lord is saying, if I did not engage in work relentlessly, he says the whole world will follow that pathway easily. Now, listen carefully. If I did not engage, if I did not work, the whole world will follow that. Aha, yes. But the truth of the matter is, the Lord is constantly engaged in work. He is 7/24, meaning he works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. He never stops. And someone said, Panditji, how is that? I said, well, you know this earth that's going on its axis, does it stop? He's churning the wheel. Does the earth stop rotating around the moon, and the moon and the earth around the sun? 7/24. So humanity, learn that I never stop working, and so too must you. Now someone said, Panditji, we have to rest. Bhagavan says there's 168 hours in a week. Did you know that? Calculate quickly. 7 times 24. Any mathematician? Am I right? Yes, good. Okay. And in the 168 hours a week, we are supposed to sleep 7 times? No.
5.
8? 10 hours. Some of my students sleep for 10 hours. So that's 80 hours. Some of them, if you give them time, they'll sleep for 50, for 89 or 100. No. A healthy student who is in studies, not a young baby, over the age of 11, should sleep 7 hours a day, maximum. So, 7 sevens, 49, right? We'll give you 50. So that leaves 118 hours from 168, right? Let's do mathematics in our head here. Those of us who went to school to do this, right? So we have 118. And then you need to go to school or work for 8 hours, 5 days a week. That's 5 eighths, 40. So from 118, take away 40, that leaves 78, right? Good. So 78. We're doing good so far? 78. So we got work covered and we got sleep covered, right? 78. So what are we going to do with the 78 hours? Work and sleep when school is finished. Oh, we got to travel. So we'll take 2 hours a day to travel, 5 days a week, 10 hours. So that leaves us with 68. 68 hours? My God, what are we going to do with that? That's more than close to 3 days. We have 3 days that we have nothing to do with. Ask yourself a question. How do you spend those 68 hours? When you go home today, I want all of the young people to do a quick time analysis. So, and it's a T. You know what's a T chart? This way, this way. Over here, heading. The things I like to do. Over here, the things I don't like to do. list down all the things I like to do every day and put down how much time you spend doing them. And the things I don't like to do, list them and put down how much time you spend doing them. And you could talk to me about this when you do the analysis, okay? By the way, some of the mature individuals, it wouldn't hurt for them to do this too. So, how do we give our time and how do we commit our time? It's also based on our state of mind. And if we are in this id or tamasic state, I can tell you which side of it will have lots. So when I see that, I will say, oh, very tamasic, a very rajasic, or very sattvic. You will determine who you are by this chart. You might be amazed of who you are. You might be amazed of how much time you spend. And by the way, there's one factor or not factor. In everything you do, you need to state, what is your state of mind? Am I happy? Am I upset? Am I stressed out? Am I worried? Am I annoyed? I hate them while I do this? The state of mind will also tell us that you spend most of your week being in a tamasic state, a rajasic state, or a sattvic state. By the way, this is a program that I teach. This is for free today. Okay? But this is a mind management versus time management concept. Okay? Where the mind dominates time. Now, here comes the real challenge. So why are we this way? Why are we that we more tend to lean on the rajasic and the tamasic side, or the ego and the id side? Why is it that so? Well, we'll say it's God's fault. Because He's the one who made this world and gave us all these things, all these toys to play with, and day and night and joy and happiness. If He didn't do that, then I'll be simple. That is true. He did. So, we call this the Mahamaya. During Navaratri, we talked about the Divine Mother, we call her Mahamaya. You are that powerful Mahamaya. All the things in the world that distracts me, Mother. And I love you, but I want you to help me to become detached from this distraction. So once we have identified where our distractions are, then we start Navaratri, getting rid of them, and then we can celebrate. Now I'm inviting everyone to celebrate with us tonight. And it doesn't matter if you didn't detach anything, still celebrate. You're celebrating that you have the will to detach. So I expect to see everyone here tonight helping me to burn Ravan. And if you know anyone that's Ravan, bring them, we'll burn them. I wouldn't say you bring a neighbor, okay? But if you know within yourself you are Ravan, come and witness this effigy of burning Ravan, and maybe it'll help you to purge your own Ravan qualities. Prem Sochi Shakti Mata Ki Jai, Krishna Chandra Bhagavan Ki Jai. We will continue on this discussion for the next few weeks on the question of what is called our duty. Our duty that is bound, not influenced by our negativity. A few weeks ago, we started talking about learning to love to do the things that we must do. Because we all love to do the things we love to do. The problem is, we don't like to do the things that we must do. So, life challenge is loving to do the things I must do. And over the next few weeks, we shall be discussing this also. So I imagine that the congregation will be very less. Because nobody wants to be told to do what they must do. Right? So all of you surprise me. And turn up to find out why. And invite your friends and family to find out how do we love to do the things that we must do. Prem Sochi Shakti Mata Ki. Let me take this opportunity to welcome each and every one of you. Kaun pehle baar aaye hain? Who amongst us is here for the first time in the mandir? Any newcomers? No new faces today? I saw some new faces. Put your hands up high in the air. Give them a wonderful round of applause, please.